Hello, and welcome to my Shauna Draw With Me series. In each episode, you'll be getting step-by-step art sessions on the fundamentals of drawing, coloring techniques, and animation. So get your drawing supplies ready because we're about to begin today's lesson.
For today's lesson, you will need a lead pencil with a good eraser, a sketch pad or a blank sheet of paper, a ruler, a table or desk with a nice flat surface to draw on, a room with good lighting, and a comfortable chair to sit in.
For today's lesson, we'll be going over 1-point perspective. Now, this lesson will be the next step from the first perspective lesson that I went over, which was the 3-dimensional box using the 1-point perspective. So today what we're going to do is make a neighborhood block using the same 1-point perspective. For this lesson, I will be switching between the line tool and the brush tool because there's a lot of detail that goes into this lesson to create this 3-dimensional neighborhood block background. And I will also be doing like a lot of cleaning up. So you're going to see me erasing a lot and doing some finishing touching and touching up on this piece as I go along, because that's just how it goes whenever you're using 1-point perspective to make 3-dimensional detailed backgrounds like this. So yeah, let's go on through this and, you know, pause the video as many times as you need and just rewind the parts if there's something that you don't understand, because it's a lot that goes into 1-point perspective, and with all the lines that goes on there, it can become a little bit confusing. But just make sure that you use that ruler as your guide, and to draw light. It's very important that you draw light. So when we start off with the 1-point perspective for the neighborhood block background, we're going to make we're going to start off the same way for when we did the first perspective lesson, which is have a line coming straight through the center of your page here. Okay. And keep in mind, I am using a line tool, but your line should be straight because if you have a ruler. So here is my line that cuts the page in half, which is my eye level line, or even in some cases for drawing landscape backgrounds, it will be known as your horizon line. And I'm going to, next I will be making my vanishing point, which goes into the center. So you want to make that little circle as close to the center as you can possibly make it, and this is going to be your vanishing point, because again, just like we learned in the first perspective video, everything vanishes at this center point. And it's also going to help you as a guide to make sure that everything comes from this point so we can keep everything in its proper perspective. Alright, so now I'm going to grab my line tool here, and I'm going to make 4 lines on a diagonal angle, and each of them is going to come from this vanishing point that's in the center of the page. Remember to draw light too, because you will be doing a lot of erasing. So here I have 1, 2. Notice that everything's coming from that vanishing point. 3, 4. Okay. So you just want to make it as parallel as much as you possibly can get it. I want to fix this line here because it doesn't look like it's going directly to the center. And I'm just going to fix my vanishing point. So you want to keep everything as parallel as you possibly can get it. Like for this side, it's going just a little bit lower, so I'm just going to raise up that line there just a little bit. Okay. So we can make it as nice and even and consistent with each other as much as we possibly can get it. So now what I have here is my area for where I'm going to put my houses. Okay. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my brush tool here and break all of these up. So I'm going to make 3 houses on each side. So I'm going to make 1, two lines here to separate the buildings, to separate my houses here. And then I'm gonna make them again 1, 2. So notice that space between the two lines, it gets a little larger, right? That's because it's coming closer to us. And whatever you do on one side, you're going to do the same thing on the other. With me taking my time doing each side, it will give you a chance to like see what I did, just in case like you missed something on one of the sides for some reason. 1, 2. Like I said, those two lines are going to get a little bit further apart because that space is getting larger as it comes towards us. Alright, so these two lines that we created for each side is going to be the alleyways for the houses. Alright, so we want to have like a little bit of space in between each house. Now what I'm going to do is make a line at the top of the houses, okay, which will be for the side of the house. So it's going to be a perfectly horizontal line, and the line is going to come from on the left side, it's going to come from the right building going to the left. So you want to come from the top of the right building. I'm just going to make dot points here so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So from this dot here, I'm going to make a horizontal line from here to here at the top, and I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Okay, so all you're really doing for making this neighborhood block is you're just reversing the sides and reversing the top and the bottom. So here you have the it should be like a little triangle shape, which is not, it's not going to stay like this, but it should look like a little triangle shape when you're done at the top, and that triangle should be flipped upside down, and you should see the same triangle at the bottom. Just make sure that it's coming from the building that's on the right going to the left, and do the same thing on this building all the way down here. 1, 2, and then on this side we're going to reverse it. So now it's going to come from the left building going to the building on the right side. 1, 2. Okay, remember, make sure it comes from the points where the lines meet each other. Okay, so that means it's not going to be here. You want it at the very top and the very bottom. 1, 2. Okay, now just to make the further buildings not look so long, I'm going to add 2 more smaller lines, and it's just going to be far away, so it's going to be hard for us to really see the detail. Okay, but it kind of breaks that up right there because it just looks a little too the buildings farther away looks a little too long in comparison to the buildings that's coming closer towards us. Okay, so we divided our buildings on each side. So we should have 4 buildings, okay? One really tiny one, and then it gets larger, larger, larger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so next up, we're going to make the sidewalk, okay? So we have our buildings, our houses here, and then we're going to make the sidewalk come from that vanishing point. So again, I start from the vanishing point and make a line come straight out. Okay, do the same thing on this side. Start from that vanishing point and make your line come diagonally down. Okay, so we have 1, 2, both our sidewalks here on each side. Now we want to make the curve. So that line is going to be pretty close. And the only way you'll be able to pull this off is if you use your ruler. Okay, so make sure you stick with using that ruler for your perspective background. Don't stray away from using a ruler. Don't try to cheat or be lazy. Make sure you stick with that ruler. It's very important that you use your ruler for your perspective background. Now, there may come a time when you've done this so many times that you're just used to it, so you won't need your ruler as much. But for right now, it's good to just stick with the ruler for your first time doing this. And when you develop that ability to where the point where you're just so used to drawing your perspective background that you don't need the ruler, then yeah, that'll be fine. I'm just straightening up my line quality here. again, if you're using a ruler, you shouldn't have too many issues with your lines looking crooked. Okay, these are vertical lines. It should be perfectly vertical. All right, so let's move on. So now we have our sidewalk. So I'm gonna switch back to my line tool for this next step. So what I wanna do now is make the lines that divide our sidewalks. Okay, because we know that the sidewalks are usually like these really large cement tile like objects that they put down on the ground. Now watch how I'm gonna use the ruler here, okay? Keep in mind I'm using the line tool, but let's pretend that that line tool is my ruler. I'm making this line go straight across both sides. Okay, so I'm not gonna go like this. Here's my lines. No, every time people do this, they always miss out on this part of the lesson and wind up making their lines crooked. That's not how your line should look on the sidewalk. You want this line to measure up to the eye level line. Okay, so it should be on the same angle as the eye level line, which is perfectly horizontal. So I have 1, 2. Now notice as I come further along towards the bottom of the page, each of these lines are getting further and further apart. See? And the reason for that is to give the illusion, or not even so much illusion, but you want to give the appearance that it's getting larger as it gets closer to you. So you should have like a whole almost train track like appearance in the middle of your street. All right, so now you're gonna take your eraser and get rid of some of these lines. I want to clean up these lines because when you have like a lot of lines on the page, your illustration can become a little confusing. So what I'm doing here, being as though I'm using Flash, is I'm just selecting the lines and I'm going to delete all of them. Using one-point perspective can be a little tricky, or using perspective at all can be a little tricky, but over time you get used to it and you start, it becomes much easier. I like using perspective. I just think that there are so many techniques out there that cuts time in half, and perspective being one of them. I'm almost finished deleting these lines. Let me delete some of them so I can see which ones are left. And it looked like I might have deleted a line that's supposed to be there, so I'm just going to recreate that line. There we go. Okay, let's get rid of these lines here. Okay, we should be good here. All right, so we should have our individual lines for our sidewalk. So what I'm gonna do is switch back to the brush tool, and I'm gonna make the line that comes down the side of the curve. Remember, this line should be perfectly vertical. If it's slant, it's gonna look wrong, just like how that line just made. I intentionally made this so you can see what it would look like if it's off. You don't want to go like this. You want it to be vertical. There we go. All right, so now we have our sidewalk. So for the houses, what we're going to do is get rid of these little lines here that's making our house appear as if there's like a triangle between them. Okay, so you're just going to take your eraser and just erase those lines there. And I'm going to make this little sidewalk line come out some more. Okay, so now I have my alleyways between each of the houses, and I have my sidewalk. So next we're going to do the doors. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to take it up step by step, because as the more detail we put on here and as we go further along, it gets a little bit more trickier. All right, so watch how I do the doors. So here, what I'm doing is creating a line that's going to be for the top of the doors. 1, 2. Whatever you do on one side, make sure you do the same exact thing on the other side. Okay, so I have a line for my doors on each side of the street here. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just create 2 vertical lines on each house coming from the door line to create my door. 1, 2. 1, and I'm just gonna let the other side of that door run off the page. Do the same thing on this side. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, and we'll stop there because it gets kind of hard to see the further buildings. All right, now the guideline that I use for my doors coming from the vanishing point, I don't need them anymore. So that goes to show you, even the top of your doors will come from that vanishing point. Everything, for the most part, is coming from the vanishing point. Great. So now I have my doors for each of these houses. Now I'm going to create, let's put the doorknob on there since we already have the doors. So 1, 3. And then remember the doorknob is going to be on the opposite side when you come across the street. So I think I'll stop here for today, and we'll pick back up on this lesson. Since it's such a long lesson, it'll be a 2-part lesson.
If this lesson has helped you, then hit that like and subscribe button. You can also check out some of my other videos. Feel free to leave a comment or suggestions for future videos you would like to see me do. Thank you for watching, and God bless.